Hello and welcome to another live CGC show. My name is Simon Powis, and this is a live show broadcast through YouTube and Facebook run by Classical Guitar Corner Academy, which is an online school for classical guitar. On today's show, we're going to have an interview, and it's with Bret Williams. And Bret is a good friend of mine, although I feel like since I just did a little quick chat with him to set up the technology prior, I haven't seen him since the beginning of the pandemic. So it's going to be really nice just to reconnect with Bret and hear his stories. Many of you probably know Bret already through his podcast, The Classical Guitar Insider. I don't know if it was the first classical guitar podcast, but it's probably safe to say it was the first popular classical guitar podcast. I don't think there was anything out there back in, 2014, 2013, that was doing something on the same level. And I've always been grateful to Bret because I was on his podcast way back when, and I thought, what a cool format. And I wanted to do my own podcast, and I called Bret and I said, is this something that's okay with you? Because you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. And Bret lives here in New York City. And I don't know, I felt like it would be courteous to ask. And he very graciously said, yes, the more the merrier, very generous approach to it. And since then, we've been friends and colleagues. And I often listen to his podcast. I think he's got such a way, like he's incredibly entertaining. And he's a very, very different approach to me, as you'll see, which is wonderful. So I'm wondering if anyone out there, people in the chat, listen to Bret's podcast. Let us know. I think it might be nice to see Bret and get to see the man behind the podcast. So today at CGC, I think we hit easily 120 exam submissions. Dave, maybe you can give us the final number of exams that came through. We had a lot in September, more than I was expecting, but I do believe potentially Matt from Australia was the winner with the high number guess. So I think that that may be the winner. So some people saying that yes, been listening for years. There's Lee. Bill saying I don't listen to it now, but I will. Oh, yes, and then Matt said, the Roger has asked me all to tell you to smash that like button. James Erickson, one of our illustrious teachers, guessed 127, and that might be right on the dot. It was something around there. So maybe, James, you might be the winner. Dave is saying about 125 at the moment. Yep. So a wonderful outpouring of effort and musicality and focus in the Academy over the last month. And now there's going to be an outpouring of time and effort on the part of the teachers to go through them all. But a very worthwhile effort, I think. So without further ado, I think we've got people in here now. I might give Bret a call. So please do think, we have some things we're going to be talking about, but if you have any questions for Bret, I might prompt people in the chat for some questions if they have any. Okay, here we go. Hey, Bret.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
We had trouble with that, didn't we?
We spent, for two people that do podcasting, we were sitting there trying to figure out microphones. And what can I say? Technology just sometimes wins.
It totally won in this case. And I had just gotten done interviewing somebody else over Zoom, and I couldn't get it to work. We went through AirPods and everything. And now we're on, this is embarrassing to say. Should I say it?
Yeah, go for it.
Should I? We have here an audio interface, a $1,000 audio interface. These AirPods, which are their own, financial nightmare. And none of them worked, and we're on a pair of video game headphones. from a couple of years back. So that's the best audio quality there is.
I think you sound great. And look, whatever works, whatever works.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, you're a, a long time. You're very much connected to CGC over the years, and remember having you on. I remember interviewing back in the apartment in Harlem, and then you came here for your 100th episode on your podcast. What episode number are you up to now?
I think we're in the late 130s. So it slowed down there for a little bit after that. I mean, I kind of, I focused on other things. I took last summer off and worked at a camp. And, that was fun. But I think I'm kind of starting to pick up steam with it again, But, yeah, and I interviewed you. I think it was maybe one of your first interviews ever, of you being interviewed.
And I remember, I don't think about it often enough, but I remember feeling very nervous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was... You commented, because you're right on the dot, that I buzzed your buzzer on your building right on the hour, and you said to me very astutely, you must be like nervous or something because you're right on time. And I was sort of pacing outside, like a good little professional, making sure that being on time is late kind of attitude. But yeah, I need to remember that I was nervous, and that's how other people feel.
Yeah, well, you were very good. I remember when I showed up for my audition in Texas with Adam Holzman, and I was 20 minutes early.
Right.
And I was 19, and and he said, "What are you doing here? It's early." And I was just so shaken by that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "I thought being early was good, sir." But yeah, no, being really early isn't the best either. You were great, by the way. It's just I'm amazed at. I guess that was a long time ago, because it's amazing what you've built. I mean, this is just, I'm sure you hear this often, but it is fascinating. And, congratulations. I just can't believe how big this has gotten, and how much you've contributed to all of us.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Bret. Well, as I say, it takes a village, and you're part of that village. Because I just told the story about calling you up and saying, "Do you mind if I do a podcast as well?"
Oh, you told that story during the intro to this show?
Yeah. I was struck by that because I remember one of the things when I first came down to New York City, I emailed a number of colleagues, people I'd gone to school with, other people, and there was two different attempts. One was just to meet up with people, full stop, to meet up and hang out and just connect. And the only two people who showed up was Colin Davin and Austin Moorhead, and I ended up working with both of them in professional capacities. And then the other one that really fell flat on its face is I emailed people saying, do you want to pool resources? Because we'd all gone to concerts, had concerts and had contacts and everything. And if we helped each other out, sort of circulate through those same contacts, I thought it would be a really positive thing. Nobody wanted a part of it.
Yeah, it's very insular, and I think programs like yours and hopefully this show are opening that up, sort of making us understand that that's really not the way that other industries work. That's not the way that the most successful business models work. They, if you look at like the Silicon Valley, it's based on competition, innovation, and friendship, and collaboration. And so, yeah, no, I mean, I'm amazed at how far it's gotten. It's gone way beyond being a podcast, and now it's just like one of the biggest communities ever. So, you didn't need my permission to start a podcast. You could have just done it, but you are who you are, which is a great guy. And you asked me, and I said, yeah, of course. And now I wish I had never done it, because it is what it is. I'm just joking. Congratulations on it, and thanks for coming on the show. I guess this is like our fourth, on-air conversation.
Yeah, I think so. It's nice. It's nice to be able to see you. I really quite like this format, and it's nice for everyone else to see you as well. I don't know how many people. I guess they would have seen you in videos and whatnot, but it's different to see you in conversation, the man behind the podcast.
I know. I'm like very guarded about that. I think it's because I feel like I look like a strawberry popsicle when I talk. If I talk too much and I start running out of air, my face just gets redder and redder. So, this is exciting. And actually, this made me a little nervous too, because it was going to be. I realized that just a couple of minutes before we started. I said, "Oh yeah, nobody's ever seen me talk live like this. This is going to be a complete mess."
Well, you have such a, I think you've got so many skills in this arena. Like you're very charismatic, you present really well, you've got a great voice, and you're very witty as well. Did you ever do other things outside? I mean, I know you've had a recent project, the music history podcast, and then you also had a podcast with a friend before that as well.
Oh yeah, no, I had done podcasts probably as far back as like I think 2008 or 9 with my friend Mike. He doesn't want me to say his name because it was a he actually got a memo from somebody at his company that he needed to stop doing this.
Okay.
It was a podcast where we reviewed commercials. We would just watch a commercial, and then we would talk about the commercial. And I played sort of the Joe on the street, and Mike was an advertising executive, and so he would talk about the way the commercials work. I thought it was the most brilliant idea I had ever come up with in my entire life. I had no interest in starting a classical guitar podcast, and then he said, "I can't do it anymore." I said, "Okay, I guess I got to do a classical guitar podcast."
What was the rationale behind trying to kibosh that project?
He had worked for an advertising agency, and they were like, "You can't talk about clients or potential clients or competitors
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
online." Right. So it kind of, I mean, it made sense, but he was like, "Why don't you do it with somebody else?" And I said, "I don't really, He was my best buddy, and I wanted to do it with him. If I couldn't do it with him, I wasn't going to do it at all." And then I started Classical Guitar Insider a little bit after that.
So where do you hear much from your listenership these days? You get emails, and are you in touch with people that listen?
I don't hear from them so much because you stole every last living, breathing person that ever listened to me. No, that's not true. I hear from them once in a while. I don't hear from them as much. I think generally, especially early on, when they would communicate with me, it would usually be kind of like crass. And I kind of, like they would talk a lot about beer and stuff. And I was just like, look, I'm a normal person, but I never really got that many sincere emails. And now the emails that I get are more sincere. They're like, hey, I'm going to college. I just wanted to let you know when I was a kid, I listened to you, and now I'm graduating from college, or I'm getting my master's and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's pretty neat, and that's just neat. That's a neat thing that happens to all educators with age too. I mean, I'm 43 now, so one of the coolest things ever is to hear from a student that is now, a full-grown adult, not a 22-year-old, like a 28-year-old or a 30-year-old that I taught at some point. So it's been a real ride with that, and I always like hearing from people, and I always respond pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, I like the people that listen to the show.
Speaking of education, are you still working with a lot of kids that you were teaching prior to March?
Yeah, absolutely. I teach in person, right? Generally.
Yeah.
And you've always been all about this stuff. So this was no transition for you at all. For me, it was, I didn't even do the interviews online either. The interviews were all in person until this too. So everything I did was very in person. And now this is great. This is so easy. There's no commuting. You have so much more time. But anyway, so when this happened in April, I reached out to all my students, and I just sent a fairly simple but from the heart letter explaining to them that, it's always tough being a musician, and that I understood if they needed to pull out, but if they could just, trust in the system, and that, we were going to make this entertaining and engaging online for the kids. And with the exception of just one client, every single person signed up for online lessons. And
Great.
that was one of those moments that, makes you go like, okay, it's good. I am getting through. I'm becoming a better teacher. And that's something that's special too about aging, is that you do get better at teaching.
What's it like working with the kids online? How did that change the way you communicate?
Well, first of all, there's just I think it's the most popular article in the New York Times today. It's about helicopter parenting. Oh. And they speak in the article about this phenomenon of the parents being in the room now. They're there, or they're a room over. So every time that something's not working, you'll hear somebody go, "Is everything okay in there?" or something like that. That's a new thing. That's a new dynamic. And instead of sort of complaining about it, I sort of found it helpful. There's a new sort of responsibility that the parents feel they have to sort of, they hear what's going on, and it hasn't caused too much trouble with me. I think if I was a professional classroom teacher, it would be a lot more difficult because you're trying to manage as many as 30 or 40 kids at once. I have no idea how our friends who teach in classrooms are dealing with this. It just seems like an impossible task, especially if they're teaching in high needs districts with kids that are, coming and going at their leisure. But in my case with the after school guitar, I think it's a welcome respite for the parents and for the kids. That was a big deal, is that I thought that they were gonna not like it as much. But I feel like they have a relationship with technology that's that we often talk about how unhealthy it is, but the young people, they don't, nobody's on Facebook more than my dad. It's like the young people, something happens, something clicks in them, and they're able to manage themselves pretty well. So I've had a really good experience with the kids. Some have even gotten, I think, much better just by virtue of knowing that mom or dad is right there, and having to be answerable to them. So I've had a pretty good experience with it. Fall, it was a little bit, I lost a couple of kids. Obviously, I understand they're just really distracted and they're trying to work out their schedules. We know in New York City that schools are starting and ending at different times. But that's been my experience. I've really enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed it with the show. I've enjoyed reaching out to people that I would never talk to, people in different countries that rarely come through New York. So it's been an awakening.
Nice. Well, so recently you released a new album with your own compositions. Is that part of the result of this time that you got to focus on your composing?
Well, the composing aspect of it, not so much. The compositions were there. They have been going on for about 2 years. But the recording aspect of it, absolutely. There's no way this probably wouldn't have gotten done until the spring. But I was able to focus on that. I was able to learn how to do home recording. Your last guest, Urosh, was, or I don't know if he was your last guest, but he was on your show recently. I had him on the show, and he was really important to me. I really went to him to sort of figure out what to buy, how to do it within a budget, and I used him, and I did it at home. And there's some aspects of it that I will say I do not like. I didn't dampen the sound enough in the room, so it's got this sort of chambery effect. It's a little distant sounding, but I really needed to get these out, and I just wanted to do it. I just wanted to release it and make it happen. I wanted it to be something that I recorded. I didn't want to be dependent on anybody. David Steinhardt, who's the producer of the Tone Based podcast and an excellent musician himself, the guy who was the co-producer of the Music History podcast with me, when that was going on, he helped me master it. But other than that, I kind of did a lot of it myself, and I wanted to have that experience. But I do think that there were limitations that, now if I look back on the recording process, it's something I would have done. There are things that I would have done differently. But that's just me. I like to get things out and keep on moving.
What was the setup you ended up using?
I'm drawing a blank on the microphones. I've got the RME Babyface Pro interface, which David had told me to use. So that was the most expensive thing I got. And then that just allows you to sort of, you can monitor the input through, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, through the DAW or the Logic or whatever you're using, Pro Tools, in real time. So you can hear that in real. So it's got lagless. But the microphones I'm using are, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. It's a Russian company. They're in there. But they were like $400 a pop. If you want to know what they were, you can. Oh God, Octava. That's what they are. You know those?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. So they weren't expensive. Those were like $400 or $500 I got for a pair of those. So that wasn't. That's what I used. And then my roommate moved out, so I recorded it in his empty room there.
Nice. Well,
So
I'd
I
love
did what I
to.
could.
Sorry?
I did what I could with it, and I'm happy with the pieces for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we're going to have a listen to a few. Do you want to give us? We're just going to play through a few excerpts, but do you want to tell us about the group of pieces as a whole? Is there something that ties them together, or is it just pieces that came about at this time of your life? And then also like any stories attached to any particular pieces.
Well, I mean, there's definitely stories that are attached to each of the pieces, and I never say this ever, but there are some of them that are like really personal. You know what I mean? Like things that had happened to me that like I was reacting to, whether it was there was a breakup at some point that I hadn't experienced anything like that for a long time, since I was a kid. So that had its own effect, and that sort of always propels art to happen in a lot of us. And then there was there were a lot of moments where that happened. A lot of that came, so a lot of the composition came from kind of propelled off of that moment. I was transitioning from becoming a full-time music teacher, which I was only for a year. And that sort of I was in a quartet, that put that on hold. And then I came out of being a teacher and back into being a guitar teacher again. And I had a little bit more time to be creative, and I had more time to myself. I was alone again, and I used that time to write as quickly as I could. So I was really jamming along there 2 years ago, and then about 6 months after that, so I'm about 5 pieces in at this point. I cut my left hand pinky, and I got this operation. I cut through the tendon. I was like out of commission for over a year. I had 2 operations. The left hand pinky did not move at all. So I had to like rehabilitate to that. And then after I had gotten out of that, I went and I taught at a summer camp for 2 months because I didn't even know if my pinky was going to come back. So I just frantically was looking for summer work. And I'm glad I did because it's the best place on earth, Camp Lindenmere. It's super fun. And I met a lot of fun people. But then I got back in the fall. I did the music history podcast, started releasing that. And then I composed a couple more songs. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to get it out is because I was like, anything can happen at any point. Let's just get it done.
Right.
So as far as individual stories I mean, we can kind of go through them or however you want to do that.
Well, what should we start with? Number 1 is called "I Guess I'll Make Myself Happy." Should I play a little bit of that and you can tell us about it?
Sure.
All right. Let me just because we don't have any videos, I'm going to put up on the screen. This is BretWilliamsMusic.com. This is Bret's brand new fancy website that he just finished. Is that last night?
Yeah.
With great graphics. Maybe we'll get you to talk about the art in a little bit. But let me just play. Sorry, I'm juggling around bits and pieces. Here we go. Sorry, it was very. We agreed to play excerpts as a very unceremonious way, just like, and was done, and we're done. Sorry about that. Maybe next time I'll try a bit of a fade or something. But so tell us about that piece. Sorry, tell us about this piece.
That was the first piece I wrote, from this little cycle, and coming back into it. I think I sort of approached it with. It is. I think it reflects sort of the whole process. It's the beginning of the process, so it's got a prelude sort of structure to it. Especially that beginning, that intro. I was really happy with the intro. I was like, oh, this is definitely going to be the first piece of the concert or the first piece of whatever. The title doesn't come till later. That's always the case with me. This piece was just solo number one for a year or two. But I try to write what I want to hear. And I don't go into things too conceptually, just because I think there's a lot of people that do that. They could probably do it better than me, and there is like an improvisatory way to the way I approach life, socializing, love, all music, all of it. To me, I have the best time when I'm coming up with something at the guitar and adding to it slowly. So, and the process in writing this, I had kind of decided that I was also not going to write things down. I had heard somewhere that Roland Deans had done that a couple of times, or at least with Tango and Sky, he didn't write it down, he just played it. And that sort of stuck with me, and I thought, like, that's a really good way to write music that's playable, which is something that is important, and it's something that I think we could all benefit from. I always want to do something that we can all that can help the community. And when I was developing this rep, I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to write something down, my old process was to write something down and then work super hard at doing it at all costs. So some of those pieces I was playing with the quartet, it's like I would come to the conclusion at some point that some of the stuff was unplayable, at least for me. And I didn't want to do that with this. So I made a point to sort of, approach everything, as I said, from an improvisation standpoint and make sure that it was playable. And I didn't write it down. So I memorized it, internalized it, which I think is always a good idea when you're performing or playing music. And that's sort of, I think with this piece, I sort of established the way I was going to approach composing for the rest of the cycle.
So if you recorded that piece again, or any of these pieces again, they'd be a little different.
I don't think so now. My goal now, I just actually released that book about the fig tree as a publication. It's available just through me. You just email me and I just give it to you, and then you just play it if you want to. But it's that's the publication. And I want to do that with everything. I want it to be written down. I want it to be something that people can play on their recitals, something that'll fit into their repertoire.
Well, we'll keep listening to some more, but I know people tune in and out of these live streams. So tell us, so are you offering it, is it for sale on your website? You contact me and I'll let you know. I don't think I'm going to sell this one. I think you can just kind of have it. It's just like, let me know that you're playing it. Let me know where you're playing it. And I'll try and tune in. I just want, I think it's fun, new rep that is tonal. And I'm just, I really hope people will play it. So for right now, it's essentially this piece at least is free. And of course, if people felt so inclined, there's
ways to help me.
There's ways to help you on. That's not this new site, right? It's got to be something else. Where did all the buttons go and everything?
It's in the support section of the site.
Oh, that's good to know.
In menus, there's something called a support. If you scroll down, there's something called support, and support has a way to help me out if you want to. And there's no pressure.
Let me just do that because. Can I do this? Oh, so sorry, we lost sound there for a second. So yeah, so this is Dave just put up the website. It's bretwilliamsmusic.com/support. So it's a great way. It's a great way for people if they want to contribute. Many people have been listening to your podcast, and I'm sure they'd be happy to join in there with support. But let's dive into another. Seeing as I've got the screen sharing going right now, let's have a listen to another piece. Should we just go to the second track?
Sure.
Okay, so that time I managed to do a fade out. Very classy.
That was so classic.
I don't think you would have heard it, but I think everyone else got a fade out.
Right on the Steely Dan part, I call it. From my mom. My mom loved Steely Dan growing up. So
You know what? I'm going to go on a slight tangent for a second, but Evita and I did a really enjoyable thing a week or two ago where we put on Dark Side of the Moon and just listened to the whole album beginning to end. And we hadn't done something like that for the longest time. Just where you listen to and especially a conceptual album, we got reminded by the new ad for Dune, this movie coming out.
Yeah, I thought it was a show.
No, it's a movie, but they're using in the trailer. They're using Pink Floyd, and anyway, so it just reminded me of the joy of having a listening experience where you take something in as a whole, like a whole album. Anyhow.
Yeah.
Tell us about this piece. Someone was commenting, David commented, love the piece and the title. The title is No One Needs Love When They Are on a Plant-Based Diet.
That's right, and I agree with that.
Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, the titles, as I said, they were all made after the pieces were complete, when the album really was complete. I hate to say that, but it's just true. But those first two pieces, especially, these were made after it sounds so hokey. I just said this on Classical Guitar Live too, but I broke up with and then I wrote music. So I started kind of just going like, this was a big time for me. The last year or two I was in a big relationship for like 15 years. I was in a little one after that, and then since then, a couple of years now, I've been really alone for the first time in my life, and I'm feeling really good about it, and I have felt good. Felt pretty good about it for the last couple of years. I'd say like probably year and a half or so, 2 years. I feel like I've been getting better at myself, and part of that is eating more plants and less animals. So I think it's good. I found happiness and sort of peace and contentment, and I don't think I really knew how to do that. And writing this music and being more healthy were all instrumental in me not needing love. So that's where that that's where that title comes from.
Jim asked, what are your influences? He sort of had Spanish or Latin with some question marks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, like I said at the beginning, I wanted to write pieces that I wanted to hear. Um, and that means pieces that I want to hear not as much in the concert hall, but certainly, when I'm doing the dishes. And, I wanted stuff that I would want to listen to when I was going through my day. That was also challenging in some spaces and informed, and would make for something that would be fun in a concert. So, you know, um, influentially speaking, yeah, you've got bluegrass, you've got a lot of jazz, definitely Brazilian music, Brazilian rock uh, is a big deal. The harmonies of a lot of the independent rock that I'm really close to, being in Brooklyn right now, they're very experimental. The things they're doing with rhythm and with soundscapes. There's a big like ambient sort of cool kid thing going on right now that's great because it reminds me of, I think Vangelis or whatever his name was, the guy who wrote themes for Mutiny on the Bounty. So a lot of that sort of like ambient music. My dad listened to a lot of that stuff, a lot of synth ambient stuff from the 80s and 70s. And harmonically, that's in there. Um, and I think that each piece is a little different, So the Ah Wait sort of has a little more of that rock bluegrass stuff going on, sort of like a country twang, and I think that it's kind of representative of my personality as a listener too. Um,
Should we have a listen to? You said the composition that's available is that book about the fig tree, or is that the name of the whole collection?
no, that's the name of the composition that's available right now.
Okay, well, maybe we'll have a listen to that.
Yeah.
All right, give me a second to do the juggling. Well, I'll just start playing it. Nope, that didn't work. Sorry, more technical juggling. Here we go.
Do you not want to play it? You don't have to play it.
I messed everything up. Give me a second. I'm sorry. Okay, we both have to be quiet now. I'm going to start it again. Here we go. All right. That was sorry. I'm trying to do the juggling act, but that was beautiful, Bret. I really a very beautiful piece.
Yeah, that's one of those that kind of, it came from the heart, and then I had a reason to develop that theme because, and I know I talk about love and about, but I don't think we talk about that stuff enough in our universe. I don't think we speak about it. I think we like to talk about, and this is with all due respect to influences and teachers and who you studied with, but really, it's like, why are we here in the first place? So the impetus for a theme came from, again, like a romantic situation I was in, a different one. And it's like, I kind of, with this album and a lot of what's going on, I think that I want to assert that fact more than I may feel comfortable with. I wish I could say, oh yeah, it's all about, me resolving a six chord. But that's not what it's about. That's where a theme, in my opinion, should come from. So this is a reflection of something that was actually happening in the beginning, the opening theme. And then I had a reason to develop it. And the reason I had to develop it was my little brother who moved to New York was getting married. And he had asked if I would play. And I don't play at weddings a lot. I don't enjoy it. I want to have a good time. I think nowadays I would like doing it more. But, for my brother, of course. So I did it, and I finished the song, and I hadn't played for a while. This is after the first operation, and I was like really nervous about getting it done. I got it done, and I love my brother and I love his wife Molly, and so I started the piece for one reason and finished it for another. But this is a piece that's definitely about people that are really important to me. And I think that that's the glue that kept it together more than any conceptual idea about form.
Well, it's just a really. I personally I just like it very much. So congratulations on a lovely piece. No, I mean, and I think it's, I agree, and it's noble, and I personally too forget. I get so ensconced with teaching and education, and then just also not choreographing, but coordinating efforts with different people these days, that sometimes you forget to flex that emotional muscle, if it's a good metaphor to use, because it's often where we started. We had those feelings, and we wanted to express ourselves, but we can get a little lost in the weeds of all of the above, technique, harmony, impressing people, ulterior motives, professionalism, blah, 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 endless. Yeah. But that's, I really appreciate you talking like that, because you're right. You don't hear it very much.
No, you often are told. I remember when I was told about what to do with my repertoire for a concert, I was told, okay, well, you take the keys and you say, okay, I've got too many pieces in E and too many pieces in A. I need a piece in D, and then blow them all away with a piece in F. You think about things like that, and it's like, well, why don't this is not what music is about. It's not what it was about to Beethoven. It's not what it was about to, maybe there was like a logistics thing with Bach or whatever, and maybe that's what makes him great, is that he had to just nail it out. But I have a hard time believing that that's why we got into this. It really is all about, pain and happiness and, childlike wonder. And, and in some cases, it can be about elves. It can be about all sorts of dumb stuff. But, that's sort of kind of the direction that I wanted to take the album in. And, I don't know what I'll do in the future, but I know that that's where I was at, and I wanted to release something like that.
That's awesome. Well, we're coming towards the end of the hour, and I want to offer some question time for people. But just to remind people, you can go to BretWilliamsMusic.com. That's with one T. And you can support Bret by going to /support there. And then if they would like to contact you about that music that we just heard, email you at what? Is that on the website, or can you give us the email?
Yeah, it's real simple. It's just Bret with one T at BretWilliamsMusic.com. Bret with one T.
Bret at BretWilliamsMusic.com.
Yeah.
I think you might have a few people reaching out to you because
No, that
it's
would be
yeah.
super nice. I would love to talk to people about music and about anything, to a degree,
Yeah. Right, right. So I'm going to invite people now if they want to ask any questions in the chat, and we'll choose some for discussion. But I have a question for you, Brett.
Sure.
I think we touched on this a little bit way back when you came on the podcast the first time at CGC, and I find a really interesting tension in you between, like, you will often say in your podcast, yeah, this person gave a concert last night, but you know what, I just didn't really feel like going, so I didn't go. And I've also encouraged you many times because I think you have such a talent, like a real talent for broadcasting and entertaining, but you always come back to classical guitar, and you're actively composing. It's something that's really deep within you that drives you. And so my question to you is, what would make you want to go to a classical guitar concert?
You know what? Even though I don't go to many anymore, just because I feel like there's so much else to do as an artist at this point for me, and there's so many other things that I want to see, and sometimes that includes time to myself to relax. It doesn't involve me taking an hour train ride to go see yet another classical guitar concert for me. I have I went to a lot of college where I had to watch it. I've seen a lot, and what gets me to a concert is just, it's really arbitrary. But what I will say is that I go to some of these and I'm so happy I did. It's, when I saw I hadn't seen Pablo Sanz Villegas, and I saw him, and it was incredible. It's everything that we kind of wanted the guitar to be. Or like, I just interviewed somebody sort of piggybacking on what I was talking about with actually emotionally connecting to a piece. I interviewed Laura Mazan recently, who's a new guitarist, and she doesn't have an album, but I interviewed her anyway because she came out with a single, which I guess people are going to start doing. My album's not very long, but it does have a beginning, middle, and end. But she was releasing a single, and I listened to it, and it was a Brouwer piece that was so well performed. And when she explained about her way that she had approached practicing it, she said she sat down and she emotionally tried to connect with the piece. Emotionally. Like, tried to really, really be present and emotionally present with the piece of music, rather than execution, which is what we are. As you're an educator, I'm an educator. We're both performers. We're both, raised with a certain amount of the same pedigree, and it's like, that's what we want to do. We want to execute well. And but that recording was so powerful for me of her. And anyway, I don't know where I was going with this, but I think that's what brings me back to the guitar, that sort of ability to reconcile emotional commitment to a piece with the terror and fear of recording and being on stage.
Would it be true to say then, I'm sort of extrapolating from various things you've said, that you personally are more attracted to some emotional depth and connection to the musical experience, as opposed to, and maybe you're even turned off by the standard fare of classical guitar repertoire, and also sometimes the way of playing that's through the lens of classical guitar societies. Like, you're playing classical guitarists playing for classical guitarists, and it sort of begets a certain type of playing.
Right. And the societies do what they can to reach out. They basically have a small budget for people that are trying to do things that are sort of different, and then they have a large budget for people that are doing the same thing that's always been done, that i.e. playing the standard repertoire with maybe one or two pieces that are commissioned. And there's nothing, that's what puts people in seats, but my feeling is that we're not getting enough people in seats in the first place, so to really drive an entire industry. So I think that everybody has to do their part in doing something different. and contributing something creative to the art form. And you can be creative and play another person's piece of music, you know?
So I'm going to find some questions here from the chat. So Martin, who's a big fan of yours, I know he was looking forward to. He was suggesting to have you on as a guest, and he was looking forward to
cool.
it. He's over in Sweden, and he asked, "What happened to the history podcast?"
The history podcast was really hard to do. That was not Classical Guitar Insider. Classical Guitar Insider, I get on, I have a guest, I interview him, I do some light edits, and I'm done. The Music History Podcast, each one of those 24-minute episodes took so much time. The amount of research, the amount of sort of deciding what research is valid, what's not valid, especially when we're talking about this old music. I mean, we start from the very beginning with Mesopotamia, then we go on to Greece. And I was put in a position where I would have had to continue doing it alone. I reached out over the show to see if anybody was interested in doing it. A couple of people were kind of interested in doing what they could, but what they could do is not what I needed to be done, which is I needed a research assistant. Mm-hmm. It's always fun to go out there and research, but you have to do it responsibly. And also, there's an environment right now that there's an important thing going on where it maybe wasn't the best time to start a music history podcast about European music, it just, issues of relevance came into play. And, we tried to go to China to look at the next piece of music, because we wanted to do it chronologically based on when the piece of music was written. We thought that would be the most fair thing to do, rather than just going by whatever the Grove Encyclopedia of Music says is next. So that means going to China. And me and the guy who I was working with found a lot of issues was that there's just no information on what was going on. And the information that they do have is written in Chinese and hasn't been translated. So that got way beyond my pay grade. I just was like, okay, well, I want to do it responsibly, which means not just going straight into Gregorian chant, right, from Greece, because that's a Eurocentric approach. I wanted to do it globally. I wanted to do it responsibly, and I still do. So that's going to take me finding the right person or team to work with. And right now, I just haven't found anybody that's willing to put in the time to do it with me.
Yeah, when you do hear the credits announced for things like NPR style podcasts, it's a huge team of people that go into those highly produced episodes. Yeah.
So I'm very proud of them, and I think they're cool, and I love learning about that stuff. But man, to do that, to script it, to make it flow, to be funny, it's really hard. Sorry.
Les asked, Bret, do you think new compositions are becoming too virtuoso-oriented, no longer approachable?
Wow, that's super good. That's really good. Yeah, I think the pendulum swings, and I think that 10 or 20 years ago, a lot of the compositions that I was encountering weren't. A lot of them were sort of nebulous, and they were sort of these blobs of harmony, very, very prelude in nature, improvisatory, and there wasn't a lot of form going on, and there wasn't a lot of virtuosity. Now that I think we have younger players who are doing the composing, I think it's just like anything else. It's like when you have a young composer, any young composer struggles with making things playable for the instrument, and the guitar is not immune to that. And so with all the younger composers who sort of don't take that into account, I think that's sort of what you're seeing. I think you're just sort of seeing an element of youth culture being at the helm of this. And I think that it's going to get better. Those people are going to grow up, and they're going to start understanding that they want their compositions to be playable. And I struggle with it too. There's elements on this album that aren't as playable as other songs. So I think it's just the nature of us. What we want is more people composing, whether it's playable or not. It's like you just got to get it out there.
Right.
And we don't have enough of it. We just don't have enough people composing for the instrument.
Well, speaking of that, just to wrap up, Bret has an album called 7 Original Pieces for Solo Guitar with some great titles of the pieces. I got my copy on iTunes because I still like to just buy things. I actually don't have a Spotify. I'm getting to that point where I'm just saying no to certain technological things, and I never had Spotify. So I just still buy them, and but you can get it on Spotify. You can play them on Spotify. You can download it on iTunes. Where else could they listen to it?
I mean, if you go to the website, there's something I don't even know, Simon. There's something called Deezer. I don't know.
Just go. So, but Bret Williams Music.
Yeah.
BretWilliamsMusic.com will have the right links, but also if you search for Bret Williams and the album's called 7 Original Pieces, you'll find that on iTunes. And if you want to support Bret and his podcast and all the things he's brought to the community, head over to BretWilliamsMusic.com/support. Bret has some amazing jokes about going to the wrong website and getting the wrong result, but you'll have to listen to his podcast to hear those ones. They're always my favorite. They're always my favorite joke.
Oh, my ads.
Yeah, saying like, don't go there. It's the wrong side.
That'll happen. Yeah.
So, I don't stop with those jokes. I love them.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's great to see you. Great to see you. And people are saying thank you, and they really enjoyed your music and really enjoyed seeing you. So.
Oh, that's great. Thank you guys. Thank you for tuning into this. This is special. This is a special moment for me. I'm really glad that the community stuck with me through all my. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations over the years, and it's with both hands, both the right and the left, and it's amazing that I can kind of come back after so long, and there's still people that want to help, and you're one of those people. So thank you very much, Mr. Powers.
Well, thank you, Bret.
Now you know what I have to do. I have to go teach.
I know. I'm gonna have 5 o'clock on the dot, so I'll let you go. But thanks, Bret. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. Well, it was wonderful to have Bret on the show. He's one of those guests that you can sit back and he's a host. He knows how to be entertaining, charismatic. That's just who he is. So great to have him on the show. We'll be back next Tuesday with a lesson or a focus on an educational topic. If you have any, I'm going to go back into the academy and look at that thread in the forum about suggestions. I keep going back there to get some ideas. But if you have any requests or ideas, if you're in the academy, you can go to the CGC show season 2 forum and let me know what you'd like to talk about. I'm always happy to oblige if I can, if I have my ducks in a row. But yeah, to those of you who are new, hope you enjoyed it, and please come back. Well, take care, everyone. I'll see you